Hello everyone. Today you are going to be taking a break from your current art project and you're going to be beginning a new art project with me in this video. Before we get started, let's cover some very basic but also very logical rules. Since you are still in the art room and I am still your teacher, then all of our art room rules that you see on the wall behind me are still good. Especially rule number 1. It says, listen when Mrs. Gray is teaching. So even though it's a picture of Mrs. Gray teaching on the television, it's still me. And if my mouth is moving, your mouth is closed. You should look like Mona Lisa. Your eyes should be watching the screen. Your mouth should be zipped up tight. And your hands should not be doing anything during the time when I am speaking. Rule number 2. If I tell you to do something, if I say go or start, then you do it. But if I have not told you to begin, then please don't draw, color, cut, glue, or anything. You know how I teach. I always show you the instructions first, and you're only supposed to watch, and then I tell you when to begin. Same thing. Rule number 3, you will use the art supplies correctly. You all know how to do that. That is not usually a problem. And rule number 4, you will show respect for everyone. You will be respectful of the teacher who is in the room. You will be respectful of your neighbors who are trying to listen. And respect yourself by doing your very best artwork. And respect the artwork, yours and everyone else's. Are you ready to learn about what we're going to make? Today you are going to be starting a funny, crazy self-portrait. Now, the portrait is already created. You are going to be using a photocopy of your picture from Picture Day, and you are going to be cutting off your hair and creating a wild and crazy new hairdo. First, let's take a look at the supplies you're going to need. During this project, you will need a piece of long and tall white paper. You will, of course, need a pencil. You will need a regular Sharpie and also a skinny Sharpie. You will need a pair of scissors, a glue stick, and a pack of markers. And of course, you will need your photocopied Picture Day picture. The first thing you're going to need is one piece of this paper and your pencil. And you will be writing your name on the back of the paper. First thing. Now the video will pause so you can collect your paper and your box of supplies. Once you have your name on the back of this paper and you have this picture, you are ready to do the cutting. Now your job here is to cut yourself out, but also remove your hair. Now to make this a little bit simpler, a little bit easier, I have already drawn on your cutting line. I used a red pen, so if you look across your forehead, you will see a little bit of red line. The red line goes down. If your ears are showing, the red line will go around your ears, so you do have to leave your ear on the picture. But if your ear is not showing, or if it's a little bit cut off, then just follow my red line. Girls who have long hair that come in front of your shoulder like this, don't cut off your shoulders, don't cut into your body. Just look for the red line that I have drawn and follow the red line. It'll start at the bottom by your arm. It'll travel all the way around across the top of your forehead, and it will end at the bottom of your opposite arm. Take a look. I'll show you how to do the cutting. When you look closely, you can see the red line that I have drawn. You will start cutting on one side at the bottom of the page. You will follow the red line carefully, and you will stop over here. You will do no cutting on the bottom of this portrait. That part is already straight. The video will pause now so that you may cut out your portrait. Remember to take your time and do a good job. There, you can see once that part falls away, it starts to look pretty strange. Now at this point, you're going to take this long, tall, skinny paper, flip it so that your name is on the back, and you're going to glue your portrait in place with the glue stick. You know how to operate a glue stick. Turn that picture over, put a line of glue around the outside edge and across the bottom. Make sure your glue is close to the edge so the edges don't peel up. And then you're going to glue yourself against the bottom edge of the paper. Make sure there's no white paper showing beneath your body. Put your body clear down to the bottom edge. Center it so that it is in the center of the page. And then give it a good rub so that everything stays down.
The video will pause so that you can have time to glue on your portrait.
Now, your portrait might look pretty goofy at this point, but don't worry, it's about to get a lot goofier. Our next job is we have to create a new hairstyle. As you can see by looking at my sample, the hair is going to be very tall and very interesting. Let's take a look at some different ways that you can add that big new hair shape. For this step, you will just need your pencil. Now, if you have an ear that is showing, you are going to want to begin your hair shape either on top of the ear or attached to the outside of the ear. Attached to the outside of the ear is how I did it on this one. But another thing to consider is your hair shape needs to be the full height of this paper. Don't stop your hair here. Don't stop your hair here. All the way to the top. So think about a creative top style. What is that top part going to do? Mine comes to a point. It could be a curl. It could be a big blob up on top. It's really up to you. On the other side, or if you do not have an ear showing, then your hair needs to come outside of the face like it does here, and you get to choose where it ends. It might stop right at the shoulder, or it might travel down the shoulder a little bit, as mine does here. I'm going to begin on this side with my pencil. Do not draw right now. You watch, and then I will give you time to work. I'm starting right here on the side of my ear. I'm going to make some puffy-like shapes. You also want to make sure that your hair comes out. Do not make a very skinny strip of hair sticking straight up. Give it some curves. Give it some volume. The only thing that you should not do is make it go off the side of the paper. You want to always stay on your paper. I'm going to put a little curl at the top of this one. I'm going to put a couple of spiky things on this side. And now I have to decide what I want the other side to do. I think it'll end with a couple of puffs that look like they go behind the head. Now I have a nice tall shape. You will notice it goes almost all the way up to the top. It has some different lines, some different curves. It has an interesting shape. It goes over to the sides of the paper, but it does not touch the sides of the paper. But now the video will pause so that you may design your hair shape. Now that I have a hair shape done with pencil, the next step is for me to outline this hair shape. But before we do that, let's take a look at those two Sharpies that are in your supply box. One Sharpie is going to make thick lines, and the other Sharpie that looks more like a marker pen, that's going to be thin lines. You will be using both of these, but listen closely to the instructions so you know where I want you to use each one. The one we're going to use first is the fat Sharpie, the one that you've always had in your supply box. Take a look. I'll show you what I want you to do with that Sharpie. You are going to use this Sharpie to do 2 steps right now. The first step is just to outline the shape that you have right now. As usual, I expect you to go slow and to stay on the line. Take your time. When you get to the face area, I do want you to outline just the part of the head that is inside the hair shape, like this. You do not need to outline any part of the body that is outside of the hair shape. Now my outlining is complete, but I told you you'd be doing 2 things with this. First, let's pause and let you do the outline. The next thing that you are going to do with this marker is you are going to divide the hair shape into 10 sections. You may create these sections however and wherever you want, but you need to divide it into 10 different areas. For example, I might just take a line and continue it across. Now my hair is 2 sections, but I need 10, so I'm going to keep going. You can see that I am using the outer shape areas where it's pointy or where it puffs out to kind of guide me as I create these different sections. I have 7. I could divide this small one in half, but then I would be getting into some very small sections. And one thing to avoid is very small shapes in your hair. Try to keep them larger or medium size, like these. Now I have to figure out where I can get 3 more spaces. I'm at 9. I need 1 more space. I'm just going to look for my largest area and see if I can chop it in half. My largest is probably this one, so let's see what I can do. There we go. Now I have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you want to do this step with a pencil first, in case you're afraid that you would make a mistake that you cannot erase, then you may do it with pencil first and then trace the marks with Sharpie. This video will pause so that you can divide your hair shape into 10 spaces. Now that your hair is divided into 10 interesting shapes, as you can see from my sample, the next job is to fill each one of those shapes with a pattern. First, let's take a closer look at some of the patterns that I used. I think you'll find that these aren't your normal, everyday, boring patterns. In this section, I used a pattern made out of circles with smaller circles inside, and then I put just some dots and tiny circles in my background space. This pattern is made up of nothing more than just lines that are really close together, with some curves thrown in that creates kind of these interesting dark lines. This pattern is a checkerboard, and I colored in every other space and put a dot in the white ones. This pattern right here is nothing but circles. Circles inside of circles, inside of circles, inside of circles, large and small. This pattern started out as a fish scale design that kind of built upon each row, and then I put a line and a dot inside there. It's amazing what simple, simple things can do to create interesting patterns. This pattern was nothing but hearts. some of them small and colored in, some of them slightly bigger. And in my extra background area, I just needed something, so I just added little spikes of black. This pattern is just a line pattern. You've been making those since kindergarten. It goes zigzag, dotted line, straight line, zigzag, dotted line, straight line. I just fill up my whole space. Spirals, my favorite kind of line. I made spirals of different sizes and I crowded them as close together as I could, and then I just colored in the extra background space. Here's another line pattern, a loopy line and a row of circles colored in. Loopy line, row of circles, loopy line. I just fill my whole space. This pattern is made up of diamonds, inside diamonds, and the little cross put inside each one. And this pattern is created, first I made it just in stripes. I filled it in with these little hot dog shapes, and then I colored them, each one opposite. This one has white hot dogs with a black background. That one has black hot dogs with a white background, and so on and so on. Something that you will notice about all of my patterns is that there is no empty space. My patterns fill the entire shape. You will also notice that I have all different patterns. I have not repeated any patterns. I have repeated some shapes like circles here and circles here, but I have not repeated identical patterns. You will also notice that in some patterns, I did a little coloring, like in this one, colored in some hearts, colored in some background, colored in some background. And in some, I did no coloring, like in this one, and in the circles, and in the lines. As you can see, the ones with coloring stand out more because those areas of black really catch the eye. So this area pops, and this area pop the most. These are all things to consider when you start thinking about what patterns you're going to create in your hair sections. Now, before we begin adding patterns to the shapes of our hair, let's take a moment and talk about what pattern is. Pattern is one of the principles of design. Principles of design are created by using the elements of design. In fact, patterns are created by combinations of lines and shapes, and sometimes colors too, but not for us on this project. Our patterns will be all black and white. But you are going to think about all of the different types of shapes that you know how to draw, and all of the different types of lines that you know how to draw, and you are going to think about how you can put them together to create patterns, interesting patterns. The thing that makes a pattern is that pattern repeats. You can't just think about all of the different lines that you know how to draw and combine them all together in one of these sections of the hair. You need to choose one or two lines and repeat them over and over and over in a creative way, or shapes. Or you can combine lines and shapes repeated in a creative way to create patterns. For this step, you are going to use only the skinny pen marker. All of the patterns that were created on my sample are done with the pen marker. In fact, you are done completely with the thick Sharpie. We've used it for outlining and to make our sections, and that's all we're going to use it for. So the pen Sharpie is what comes next. I've already been doing a little bit of work adding some patterns to my hair sections. The video is going to pause in just a minute so that you can also get to work on yours, but I just want to give you this tip. If you want to, draw your patterns with pencil first, just in case you're afraid of making mistakes, and then outline it with Sharpie. That is an okay thing to do. However, if you trust yourself and you want to dive right into your pattern making with the pen, knowing that you cannot erase mistakes, you may do that too. When you're making your patterns, you need to go slow, Be in control and take your time. So when the video pauses for you to begin making patterns, it'll probably be stopped for a good long time, as long as it takes most people in the class to get 10 patterns created. So think it through, be creative, take your time, and fill your space. Don't leave any large areas of emptiness. Think up creative ways that you can plug up all of those gaps in your design. I think you'll have a good time with this. So the video will pause, and we'll see what kind of amazing patterns you come up with. Now, by this time, probably about half of the class has finished with all 10 of their patterns, and it's time to do something to the background. If you look at my sample, you can see that we are going to be using those markers, and we are going to be creating a background that is filled with lines. Now you need to choose a color family. You can do warm colors like you see here, which is going to be reds, oranges, pinks, and yellows. Or you could choose to do the opposite color family, which is cool colors. So you would have the same type of design, but it would be with blues and purples and greens instead. So you're going to locate your marker box. You're going to find which family of colors you prefer to use. This time I'm going to use cool colors. And you're going to dig out just those colors. So warm colors, reds, oranges, yellows, and pink. Cool colors, blue, purple, and I have to find a green. Let me show you what to do. To create the color striped background that you see here, you're going to need several different markers. As you can see, I have my cool colors here. You're going to decide which color you want to do first and then create a pattern and stick to it. I believe that my first color is going to be this light green. You want to use the thick side of the marker. Don't use the point, because the point will give you a skinny line. Lay the marker over and use the thick side. You're going to begin by just outlining your whole picture, including the body. Watch this. You see how that line is nice and thick? I'm going to continue with this all the way around. Now that I've completed that color one time around, I'm going to choose a new color, and I'm going to make the same fat line directly next to my green line. Try not to leave any white space showing between your lines. When you're done with the second color, keep going. As you can see right here on my picture, you will come eventually to a point where your marker line starts to go off the paper. When that happens, let it go off. Figure out where you need to start and pick back up again. This will happen to you a lot as you get closer and closer to the edge of the paper. As you can see on this one, your job is to keep adding lines all the way out until there is no white paper left. As you can see on this step, I got quite a bit of marker on my table, so you're probably going to want to get a paint mat.
The video will pause now. Make your background.
Well, will you look at that? I got those lines all the way out to the outside. I have no more white background space. That means this project is finished. Congratulations on a job well done.